Yep, you can start.
Awesome. Cool. Welcome everybody to another edition of our Appsmith offices. So today I have Vihar, Akshay, and Sumit with me. So today we're going to be discussing some of the issues that we ended up closing for the community over the last week, as well as some of the exciting new features that we are going to be working on. And we're also going to be calling out a couple of our awesome community members for contributing and improving the product for us. All right, so let's get started. So first on our agenda is some of the things that we actually shipped this week. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So the first is this really nice feature which allows you to sort of update your profile. So this is a sort of very basic profile screen. It was something that was missing from Appsmith for a while. But today you can easily access the profile screen right from here. And when you click on edit profile, you can go ahead and update your name as well as reset your password. So this is a really small delight feature that we just wanted to ship because we know a lot of users struggle with updating their name because if you log in via Google or GitHub, a lot of times the name isn't captured. So once you've actually logged in, updated your name over here, for example, you can actually also go ahead and reference your name inside an application. So if I drag a widget over here, I can go ahead and access the user's name saying appsmith.user.name. And just like that, my name is also able to be accessed right over there. Cool. So the second feature that we actually shipped some time back was our mobile layout. So this is something that I'm particularly happy about because of my Calendly app. So initially my Calendly app was only a desktop application, but now it works really great even on mobile screens. So yeah, looking at most mobile screens, this renders really well, and users can actually block my time now without having to struggle with too much scroll. So this was a really great feature, and I'm going to show you how you can actually use this. So once you edit your application, what you'll notice is that there's a small option at the top of the screen. And this option allows you to configure the viewport for which you want to build your application. So configuring it for a desktop will give you a slightly larger canvas. Configuring it for a tablet will give you a smaller one. And configuring it for a mobile device will allow you to get the smallest viewport. You also have an additional option to configure it for fluid width. So what this will do is it will actually stretch the application to 90% of the available viewport, and this will scale across all devices. So irrespective of whether you're watching this on a mobile screen or on a tablet or an even smaller device, you'll always sort of see this UI stretch. This is really exciting because this is our first step towards becoming a truly responsive application. Over time, we'll also have the ability to reflow certain parts of the canvas so that widgets that don't fit within a viewport will automatically go below other widgets and automatically reflow for mobile optimized devices. So this is a really a new feature that we're shipping, and we can't wait for people to start building mobile applications on apps. So the third feature that we've actually gone ahead and shipped for the community is the ability to hide tabs. So, tabs can be used for a lot of things. They can be used as wizards. They can be used for dynamic forms. And one of the great use cases that we had recently was to have a tab sort of show a dynamic form based on the values that are selected in the dropdown. So a way to go about doing this is to actually create a form over here. So let's say we have a drop down over here, and we can also create, let's say, a switch. And let's also just go ahead and add an input. So sometimes you need to have variable configurations based on the option that's selected. And what we're going to do is let's change this drop down to having stab one. Great. And so what was possible today was sort of switching these tabs based on which option is selected. But sometimes we also want to only show a subset of these tabs. So for example, from the drop down one, so this today sort of only switches the tabs. No, there's a space. Yeah. So today this allows you to switch the tabs, but there are times when you want to only show a certain set of tabs based on a selection. So to do that, you can actually convert this to JS. And now also dynamically set the visibility of a tab. So you can say that this tab should only be visible if the drop down one dot selected option value is equal to, let's say, tab one, right? So this will actually allow us to configure the visibility of this so that if to that seems like a bug. Yeah. So this will automatically hide the tabs based on whichever option is selected over here. So this gives us the control that if you want 3 or 4 tabs to actually display based on another external selection, that will also be possible today. Cool. So these are some of the features that we've actually shipped over the last week for the community. Sumit, why don't you actually tell us some of the issues that the community continues to face, just whatever you've seen on Discord or whatever people have sort of been asking for support around.
Thanks, Nikhil. So on Discord, what I could see is that there were a few requests for new features, like integration with Microsoft Azure Storage, and there was a request for a new widget which could uh, uh, put a URL, a helpful URL next to widgets.
Oh, got it. So
Uh,
today the way to handle hyperlinks is by using an anchor tag inside a text widget, but basically a more specific widget around URLs so that clicking it directly will open it in a new tab.
yes.
Got it.
Apart from that, there was a request for a JS editor that would make it simple to write reusable JS functions.
Okay, I think that's something that's been requested like multiple times in the past. Just being able to write multi-line code is a huge bonus because single line code is really error prone. It leads to a lot of mistakes and very hard to debug. I think a JS editor for multi-line code, yeah, that's something that we're definitely top of mind for us and something that we're actively working on.
Yes, it would be a really powerful feature. I think next, what I noticed is that people sometimes have problems with uh, debugging their dynamic binding queries, and it is sometimes really simple issues like the name of the widget being wrong, or uh, you're missing an attribute in the end, for example, dot data dot something that people are not able to figure out.
Got it. Yeah, I think dynamic binding definitely isn't as simple as it could be. I see a lot of people either not realizing that they need to go further down the object, key path to figure out to catch the right object that they want to display, as well as people also just not getting to the dynamic binding stage using mustaches. I think handlebars is something that is just not that prevalent, and we need a better way to communicate this.
Okay, yeah, so that is all from my side, Nikhil.
Awesome. I think also before we move on to some of the things that are coming up, we had a couple of awesome community contributions from people who helped give back to the community by improving the product. Sumit, why don't you just tell us about them?
Yes, so we had some awesome contributions. So one of the contributions was rendering base64 encoded images. So we have an image widget, but it was not able to render images if they were base64 encoded. So a user by the handle of Osis has contributed a solution, a fix for this. And so thank you, Osis, for this awesome
Awesome.
contribution. And we had another user provide the backend code for a feature that we wanted to have, which is captcha for our login form. So thank you for that as well.
Awesome. So I think yeah, the capture form it's something that just prevents us from being DDoS or anybody from running a script and creating logins. So yeah, this is going to be like really impactful. Sorry, do we have the user who actually created the PR for this?
Uh, yes, yes.
This is a Monarch one.
Monarch 0111. Yes.
0 1 1. Awesome. Thank you so much, Manat. That was a great contribution. We'll have the front end for this as well deployed very soon. Cool, great. So I guess let's move on to some of the upcoming features we have in our pipeline. One thing that I'm really excited about is the new fork app feature. So we're going to have the ability to fork multiple applications, and Vihar, Akshay, and team are actually working on building multiple template applications that are going to be used by that are going to be usable by all of our users. If there's a concept you don't understand and you just like to copy from somewhere, you can easily fork an application and expect it. As well as if you just want a higher starting ground rather than starting from scratch. We're going to have a lot of beautiful templates that are going to be forkable so that you can just start with an admin panel right from day one. So that's a really cool new feature that's coming up. The other small feature that we are pushing out very soon is the ability to connect to other S3 providers. Today it's only with AWS, but we're also going to add the ability to talk to other services like UpCloud. And this is going to be really powerful because anybody who didn't have AWS today, and we got a lot of requests for this, so they're just going to get unlocked very, very soon. So I think that's coming out sometime later this week. And the two really cool new features that are under development that I actually want to showcase. I'm going to share my screen for this. So one is our debugger. So this was something that's sort of long overdue. It's just going to help us debug JavaScript issues and other runtime issues much more easily. As Sumit was saying, people have a lot of trouble with dynamic binding. Hopefully, this makes it easier for them. So the debugger is fairly straightforward. It's a simple tab that opens up, which contains three sections: one for errors, one for the console log, and one to allow you to inspect elements. The errors that show up are largely static errors, basically errors that are there in your JavaScript. If you missed a comma, if you are referencing an undefined variable, all of those will show up over here. All types of static errors will show up over here. And we'll have much better error messages as well to help you debug them. Another really cool part of this is that it will also allow you to sort of click the entity and directly navigate to it. So that's also something that we are launching with this debugger. The second tab is our console tab. So our console tab is going to be used to display all of the runtime error messages as well as runtime logs. So if you write a console.log inside a JavaScript binding, that will show up over here. As well as we'll have some logs thrown by the system every time you execute an action, every time a widget is updated, every time an action fails, if it times out. All of those errors and all of those execution logs are going to show up over here. And they'll also have additional meta context so that you can actually debug what happened in this case. So for example, if an API failed, you'll know exactly which request was made and which caused the failure of the API. So you can debug it much better. As well as if a widget property was updated, you'll also be able to see what data was actually sent to the widget at the time of the property update. So that's how the console log is going to look like, and that's going to help us debug errors a lot more easily. And the third section is the inspect elements section. So the inspect elements section is blank until you actually go ahead and select an entity. The moment you select an entity, what you can see is all the relationships related to that entity. So if this is more used for logical error debugging, if you're ever confused as to why is a table not showing data or why was a particular API not triggered, you can actually go ahead and inspect that entity and see which other entities in the Appsmith ecosystem are updating it, as well as which entities are this entity updating. So you can look at what changes in which APIs or which widgets will affect the table, as well as changes in the table, such as changing the page or selecting a row, which are all the entities inside the Appsmith ecosystem it's going to affect. So this will help us debug a lot of logical entities as well, logical errors as well. So this is a very exciting feature. We've already started work on it. We're hoping to ship this in about 3 to 4 weeks. And this will also ship with a slight case of linting, we're hoping. And that will actually help improve the JavaScript experience a lot more on Appsmith. Cool. So the second feature that I'm excited about is just improving our JS debugging, our UI building experience. So today it's pretty cumbersome to move UI elements around, primarily because all elements need to be moved around one by one. But a lot of cases are there where you just want to move a single group of elements around. So it's a simple widget grouping feature. We're going to be able to select multiple groups of widgets together. It creates a simple rectangle around those groups. And using that bounded rectangle, what we can do is we can either move the groups of widgets all together, as well as we can perform certain actions on these groups of widgets. So for example, the actions could be to duplicate these groups of widgets. So this is really helpful when you're trying to quickly build a form, and a lot of the form widgets are actually very similar. You can just copy paste them quickly. You can also cut them and move them across pages or even across applications if that's what you need. This is really useful when you're trying to replicate a certain page from one application and trying to move it to another. You can also delete them, just use to get rid of clutter very quickly. As well as this option is actually one of my favorite, which is this will allow you to group all of these widgets into a single container. So today it's really difficult when you have widgets already on a screen, but now you want to move them into a container. You have to sort of find space for the container, eventually move the widgets into them, then eventually move the container back into the position of the widgets. It's quite cumbersome. But this will allow us to just hit a single button and group all the widgets that are under this rectangle into a single container. And along with that, we'll have three additional options, which are around alignment. So these will just allow us to center, right, and left align all the widgets in one shot. So this is our first step towards making our UI building experience a lot easier. We're also thinking about adding more themes, more styles, more control over overriding the CSS of each widget. All of these will soon be in the pipeline. The plan is eventually to just create a much more powerful UI building experience that will allow developers to create extremely rich internal tools. So yeah, that's sort of the direction we're heading in today. Cool. So that's pretty much all we had for the demo today. And thank you all for joining us. I think this was a really great demo of the office hours, and yeah, I hope to see you all next week as well.